I guess it's like the emperor, the emperor has no clothes. We were supposed to believe that this buck naked progressive project Biden Obama was fully clothed and sophisticated and successful. And then somebody said, "This is ridiculous. Biden is senile, everybody. Don't you understand that? Obama's a big faker. Don't you understand that?" And then they said, "Wow, he's right. They're buck naked. It's over."
Hello, ladies. Hello, gentlemen. This is the Victor Davis Hanson Show. I am Jack Fowler. You are here to listen to and get wisdom from the great Victor Davis Hanson, who is the Martin and Ely Anderson Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution and the Wayne and Marcia Buske Distinguished Fellow in History at Hillsdale College. He's a best-selling author. He's a farmer. He's a philologist, a classicist, military historian, so much else, and he's the possessor of a website, The Blade of Perseus. VictorHanson.com is the address. Later on in this episode, I'll tell you why you should be subscribing. We are recording on Tuesday, the 15th of July. This particular episode will be up on Thursday, the 17th. You notice Victor looks for his background. If you're watching this as opposed to listening, Victor's he's in a safe house somewhere.
I'm more dedicated to never missing a podcast for our listeners than I am about the scenario, which is admittedly hotel mode or motel mode.
Well, you're
from an undisclosed. What did Rush Limbaugh always say? From an undisclosed place somewhere.
Right. From an undisclosed Motel 6. I just want to explain to our listeners before we get into the show, and we have several topics. We're going to begin with Barack Obama telling the Democrats to toughen up. But this, I know the great Sammy Wink and Victor have recorded some topics also. Our schedules are out of whack. We're going to get everything pretty syncopated soon, and we will be recording closer to the actual airing dates. But you guys just hang on, you listeners and viewers. The Victor Davis Hanson roller coaster ride is always fun. Nobody gets sick, and there's no height requirement. So anyway, we are going to talk about Barack Obama. What the heck else, Victor Vilser? What the heck? Where did that come from? Woke journalists attacking J.D. Vance. Catch and release. Adios. That and plenty more when we come back from these important messages. We are back with the Victor Davis Hanson Show. Victor, I got to tell you something quickly. I was today, earlier in the day, one of the reasons we're recording cockamamie, it's my fault, but I had a meeting in Uncasville, Connecticut, which is where the Mohegan Sun Casino is, huge casino, one of the first in the Northeast. And the Sons of the American Revolution were having their conference there, and I was meeting with some of the officials. And John Dodd, one of them, he's a past president general, great guy, a fan of yours. He actually told me he worked with your mom at the Fresno courthouse when he was just out of law school. On the way home, my sister lives in a town called Old Saybrook. So I was driving through and I had to stop and see her. And my niece was there. My niece is 23. She's lovely, Mel. And Mel tells me, "Oh, Uncle Jack, her boyfriend, they're very much in love. She was with his family. So Grandpa is asking Mel, okay, tell me about your family, aunts and uncles and all this." She says, "Oh yeah, I have an uncle and Jack, and he does this or that, and he hosts this podcast with this guy. I forget. I think his name is Victor." And
wait,
Grandpa
forget?
Well, she's not one of us.
This is supposed to be a compliment?
No, the Grandpa says, "Victor Davis Hanson." She says, "Oh, yeah. Oh, he is a fan. He's a huge fan." So I think if there's a wedding here eventually, Victor, the fact that
that's good. That
there's 3 degrees of separation from you, my niece may have made it.
I was in an event and people came up and they were very friendly, but they don't mention Fox News. They mention this podcast. So I think it's working. And then I had a nice procedure about a week ago where they put things way up here, cameras, vacuum, and I got to watch it live with a local anesthesia. And I can see why I was whining so much, because you can actually see where they cut the bone spurs, the big sores. And I could see the whole thing, and then you can see the surgery, and then I was kind of blaming myself. I'm so fatigued. Wah, wah, wah. It's been a month, and the surgeon was really good. He said, "Take a look at that. That's what we had to do." And once I saw it, it's like a canker sore 30 times the size. It it made it all sense. So I'm kind of, and actually in a weird way, I'm still wiped out, but I'm enthused that it's not abnormal to feel like the way.
I think when you started talking about this and the surgery makes it seem like, okay, it's in the nasal system, but it could be like
No,
removal of a mole or something like that. But this was
no,
kind of not
it's,
unserious
it's
surgery.
right
Yeah.
on. In fact, just going up there, the first thing I noticed was my eyeball was really freezing cold.
Oh, wow.
And then the next thing I noticed, the top of my palate was freezing when he injected water, and vacuumed and
Mm-hmm.
to get all the whatever was still there infected. But it's really amazing to be talking to the surgeon and you can see what he's doing, and he's up near your brain, and his sinuses. But I'm glad that I did it because he said, "You've got a clean bill of health. We really redid them, and we bored and big this and big that and cut that and cut that. I know it's going to kind of be rough for a couple of months, but you're going to really appreciate it in
Oh,
6 months."
if they were up near your brain, Victor, they would have needed a wide lens camera because it's so big.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So now, here's a headline, Victor. Barack Obama, Dems just need to toughen up. This is from Red State. Let me read the first sentence or two here. Former President Obama's message to Democrats is to, quote, just toughen up, end quote, amid frustration with the political landscape under President Trump. I think it's going to require a little bit less navel gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions, and it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up, Obama said in remarks. He was in New Jersey at a fundraiser. Don't tell me you're a Democrat, but you're kind of disappointed right now, so you're not doing anything. No, now is exactly the time that you've got to get in there and do something, he said. I don't know what the something is, Victor. If I was a Democrat, I think doing something would be in a fetal position. What's
I
your
don't
take
know
on all
what he's
this?
been doing. He's been out of office for 8 years. He has a foundation. They've destroyed a park in Chicago, and it looks like, I don't know what it looks like. It looks like Stonehenge or something. It's just the most ugly. It's the ugliest building. It's half built. It's a complete overrun. It's kind of like his administration. Other than that, for the 8 years, he's runs off to people's yachts. He goes. I don't know where he spends his time. He goes. I don't know if he goes to his Chicago $2 million home, or he goes to Martha's Vineyard $14 million home, or he goes to his Kalorama, Washington D.C. $9 million, or his $15 million Hawaii home. I don't know what he. I took him at his word when he said he was president and the global warming was going to destroy the seashore, and then he buys two homes on the coast. But or he's talking to African American men about Marxist false consciousness. You don't know what's really in your interest. You don't know what you're doing. Let me tell you, as the authentic black man. And then the only other thing he's done is basically say that he and Michelle are having all these problems. Her podcast is going nowhere. It's, I think everybody's tired of him. You know what I mean? They just think, okay, it was all rhetoric, rhetoric, rhetoric. If you want to think about it, the puppeteers who ran the 4 years of Biden did a lot more leftist damage than he tried to do. You know what I mean? Because he was, compared to those guys, he was incompetent. Those guys were full Marxist, and they took that wax and effigy and they destroyed the border. They did all that was what his agenda was, and he couldn't finish it because he was lazy. He said, I'm not stereotyping anybody. He said that. He was in an interview and they said, "What's your greatest deficit? What's your greatest vulnerability? What's your greatest flaw?" "I'm lazy." That's what he said. So I don't know why he thinks that that's successful when he has no record of these last 8 years of doing anything for anybody. When he was on the campaign, it was a negative effect. He didn't get, if you look at the polls when he got active versus on election day, there was no movement at all. In fact, you could argue that he hurt People just don't want to be lectured that, and he always lectures people. You know that? Don't do it. What? And then I say, Barack, what do you want to do? Tell us what you want to do. You say, don't sit on your duff. Well, they're not, Barack. Your party is throwing tear canisters at ICE people. They are trying to shoot ICE people. They are going after Jews at Columbia, at Harvard.
Destroying cities.
They've destroyed Chicago. They did a good job on Los Angeles. They did a good job on San Francisco, Washington, Minneapolis. They gave us a third sex since you've been in office. They've been doing everything. They destroyed deterrence. They had a great, if their agenda was to destroy America like yours was, they did a good job in Afghanistan. So don't tell me they haven't been doing anything. The problem has been they've been doing too much. And if you say they should be resisting Trump, they tried to kill him twice, and they tried to shoot ICE people. So what do you actually mean by resistance, the la resistance? Tell us what you mean. Otherwise, it's just, I don't know. They impeached him twice. The first term, they're going to impeach him again if they lose the House.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Well, if one big shift of voters, if you take Trump's own personal appeal to certain segments, the biggest shift is white men, and Barack Obama was integral to that by telling them they suck, that you clingers, etc. So when he opens his mouth, he has done more harm to the Democratic Party by.
Well, he lost 1,400 state and local seats during his 8 years. He destroyed the Democratic Party. He paved the way for Donald Trump and the MAGA revolution. One of our favorite websites, John Kenraker and Scott Johnson,
Yeah.
at powerlineblog.com.
Yeah.
They have a really good an analysis of why Donald Trump won the 2024. And you're right about white males. If you look at from 2017 to 2024, he made enormous gains with white males from the old. But after he reached a maximum level around 2023, and that he didn't lose that margin. They were overwhelmingly for him. But what won the election, if you go to that website and you look at people, it's black males, 23 or 24%. And then it's black people in general going up, I think, to 13 or 14%. It's Hispanics in general, right about 50-50. It's Hispanic males. And what I'm getting at is, this was the person of color, this was the DEI, this was the guy, and he did more, or he either did more to help Donald Trump gain his constituency, or he was not able to stop it. So he was a total zero. If you think that we had the first president person of color, and we had the second would-be person of color, Kamala Harris, and we had the first vice president person of color. And in that interregnum, that period between those two bookends, there was the greatest defection of people of color to a white-orange man from Manhattan. Then you've got to ask yourself why. And the answer is they were so fixated on race that people, quote unquote, of color were screaming to them, crying out, I'm worried about the price of gas. I want to be able to buy a house like everybody else. I wanted to be able to turn on the air conditioning in the summer. I want to walk down the street without being mugged. I don't care about who gets that solution. I don't care about race. I just want to have the same life as other people. And they didn't get that message. They said, no, 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 you're suffering from false consciousness. You don't know in your ignorance what's good for you. And what is good for you is voting for elite multimillionaires like Kamala and me. And we live in mansions. They live in Brentwood, Kamala does. And we are never subject to the consequences of our ideology. So you vote for us because we're the same color as you. And they said, you know what? You can do with that blank, blank.
And
they voted for Trump.
Yeah, I have a sense the black vote is going to continue to move away, especially now. I know you've talked about this in the past with Sammy and will again on the next podcast, but this New York City election is exposing that the center of the Democrat Party is not poor people who need to be helped. I'm a significant part of that, inner city blacks, and it's as you call them, the spaghetti armed progressives of Brooklyn. This
Ooh,
is this
yeah.
is not what the Democrat Party
I,
is.
I told Sammy, I thought, if you wanted to insult all the important constituents and show you what the Democratic Party is like, then you would say, we're going to go after richer, whiter people. We're going to flip the finger. I'm going to have a picture of me flipping the finger to a Columbus statue. I'm going to make fun of and spread around the internet the anti-Semitic caricature of Hanukkah. And I'm going to let it be known that I faked, or that's going to be known, that I faked a black American identity to get into college. And I thought, wow, when does the Hispanic thing come where he insults the Hispanics? And then and then this is a guy who's from the wealthiest ethnic group in the United States, and he's blaming all these other different ethnic groups. So, I saw right before I left, I stopped for this trip. I stopped in the market and I talked to a Hispanic guy. Came up to me and he said, "I'm not going to yell at you." He came up.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I was in a
Don't worry,
hard
I'm a
bush.
friendly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said to him something, I hadn't thought about that. It's very rare when people do it, but they always fit a profile, if I could be so bold, a stereotype. And he said, I know who they are. And he said, I think I know who you're talking about. I think that what you guys call the Karens. And I said, yes, it's a white professional woman between the ages of 55 and 70. They give you that long stare from 10 feet away. They walk up to you and they go like this. You are doing a lot of damage. I just wanted to let you know that I know you're doing damage. How is that? And before you can imagine, I don't want to. And they start. That's happened to me about 20 times.
Yeah. Well,
And it's
they've
it's
been
never
great
it's never
beneficiaries
minority. No,
of
it's never.
uh, what do you call civil rights? Affirmative action have been these women
That
older now but younger. They cashed in on that.
Yeah. And so basically, what the minority communities are saying to America is, the minority middle class blacks are saying, I have about as much in common with Don Lemon or Whoopi Goldberg or Hakeem Jeffries or Spartacus. And the Hispanic community says, I have about as much in common with the Castro brothers or any of these as you white people do with Chris Matthews or Joe Scarborough or Hunter Biden. You know what I mean? They've all come to that consensus that our elites live one way and talk another, and they're sick of them, and they're just interested in a middle class agenda that promotes class instead of race. And the Democratic Party can't do that because it's a party of the very wealthy and pampered.
I want
It
to call
really
you out
is.
for not including Juicy Smollett in that list of names, by the
You know
way.
what it is when I was not happy with Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
It was when all they talked about. I like George H.W. Bush. He was a good guy, but all he talked about was, we got to get those capital gains tax down. Get those capital gains tax down. Remember that? We got to privatize Social Security. I understand that, but the Democratic equivalent of that is, we got to get the Green New Deal. We got to ban natural gas stoves. We got to ban the internal combustion. We got to turn down your air. You know what I mean? It's that same top-down lecturing about what is good for America. It's never, we got to find a way, to make sure that that we balance a budget or we can afford a house. All those practical questions. They
Right, but
don't address the middle
it's not
class.
all
They don't.
economic.
It's
America
not.
is
It's
not
cultural. It's
right.
cultural.
Yeah.
And it's the Republican Party's attitude was, I'm not going to get near that transgendered issue. Oh, no, no, I'm not going to talk about DEI. No, 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 no. I can't close that border. No, 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 not me. I'll pass it on to the next guy. And then you've got this disruptor that comes in and says, me.
Yeah.
It's going to be me.
Boy, oh boy, is he. Victor, next up, what shall we get your wisdom on? Oh, headline: Woke journalist makes sick remark about J.D. Vance's young children after this one. She previously had scolded some flight attendant. This is a Mother Jones editor in chief, Clara Jeffrey, on the what this article in the Daily Mail calls the woke X alternative blue sky. She heckled the second family, who, as you know, Victor, you see the headlines, they were out at Disneyland. People who feel bad for J.D. Vance's kids as family gets booed at Disneyland, I get it. But better those kids now know what their father is about. Other kids are watching their parents get shipped off to gulags, blah, blah,
Okay.
blah. What a clown,
Gulag.
Victor.
Yeah, let me
Sorry.
deconstruct that.
Yeah.
Other kids are seeing the gulag. The gulag is Mexico. If you came illegally, then you're calling Mexico what? Michoacan? I don't know. Chiapas, Oaxaca, that's a gulag because that's where you're going to go very quickly if you came in here illegally. So why are you deprecating these people's homelands for? Gulag, gulag. Do they really think that you're going to go 30 years into something like Solzhenitsyn suffered? Or do you just pathologically lie like that? And I always thought that Nancy Pelosi told us it's the children. Remember Hillary Clinton? Takes a village. It's the children. We're doing this for the children. And yet you're attacking children because of what? The sins of their parents, you think? Gavin Newsom jumped into this. He said, it's very ironic. They were critical of California then, and now they're not going to Disneyland because it's in California, Gavin, Miss Mother Jones. They're not doing that. They would prefer it would be anywhere else. They were doing it because they happened to be in California or they had to make a trip there and it was there. Disneyland, people go to Disneyland because it's Disneyland, not because it's in California. Other than the climate, the only reason it's in is because there was a great man named Walt Disney who worked in that area and it has a good climate, just like Disney World. That's why they're not in Wisconsin or Michigan where it's cold and you couldn't go there during the winter. But I don't understand this. Gavin went after J.D. Vance. And think of all the things that Mother Jones could say. They could say, wow, we've got a $1.1 trillion trade deficit. What are we going to do? Or here's a plan to balance the $2 trillion deficit. Or here's something to get rid of the $37 trillion national debt. Or I have a plan how to address 50 million people who were not born in the United States, about probably 35 are here illegally. I'll have a plan. They don't propose anything. It's like Gavin Newsom. All he can do is call Trump, get down with Trump, and he's scum and JD Vance. Gavin, why don't you just give us a plan? Here's my plan for all the freeways with 3 lanes each direction. Here's how I'm going to solve the high-speed rail boondoggle. I can get gas from 5.50 a gallon, which I filled up today, 5.50 a gallon, when everywhere else it's going down. I can get it down for. Here's how you're going to turn on your air conditioner and not have to pay 35 cents a kilowatt. Nothing. It's down to J.D. Vance's children, or it's Hikem Jeffries with a baseball bat, or 8-hour filibuster trying to emulate Spartacus, who did what, 25 hours, or it's the smutty videos, S word, F word, or you name it. It's just
It's creepy
pathetic.
theater art, pathetic
Yeah,
theater art.
it is.
If we're going to
It's
talk
just
about
grown at so you're so Mother Jones, the cutting edge left wing magazine. You're so bereft of ideas and alternate protocols and agendas that you go attack a bunch of kids. And then you say that, who did that the last time I heard that was, uh, remember Peter Fonda when Donald Trump inherited the so-called cages that Obama built, and he was trying to stop the Obama open border, and Peter Fonda tweeted something, and I know our listeners remember it, and they'll correct me if I'm doing this by memory. I hope that Melania and Barron are in a cage or something, and people torment them. It's the same idea. I mean, that's a bad thing to do. And they're not Hunter Biden, 50 something. They're kids.
You know, how many kids have evaporated, came across the border, and God knows what horrible things
What,
have happened to them.
300,000 we can't find? The left, the Mr. Farah, the left biggest pot farm in California, 360 people arrested for being illegally employed, violating labor laws. Some of them had rape and assault convictions, and there were minors there that were, I guess, at least 10 of them, but nobody cares about that.
There's a special place in hell for these people. A really special place.
There is.
Well, Victor, I'm glad you brought up illegal immigration because we're going to get your thoughts on Donald Trump's latest action, which is the end of catch and release. And we're going to get to that when we come back from these important messages. China just executed another massive treasury sale. $8.2 billion in U.S. bonds dumped in a single month. For the first time since 2008, they've dropped to third place among foreign holders. If you understand history, you recognize the pattern. When the Athenian Empire faced insurmountable debt, foreign allies abandoned their silver first. When Rome debased its currency, barbarian tribes stopped accepting Roman coins before Roman citizens realized what was happening. Today, while Washington debates, foreign central banks are systematically moving away from the dollar and stockpiling gold at record levels. They see what's coming. America now faces $36 trillion in debt with no mathematical solution. The approaching battle between Donald Trump and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell isn't just politics, it's a struggle over the future of American currency itself. American Alternative Assets created a crucial guide, Fed versus Trump, the coming battle for America's financial future. It reveals how this historic confrontation could impact your retirement and what you can do now. Call 833-2USA-GOLD or visit victorlovesgold.com to download your guide today. That's 833-287-2465 or victorlovesgold.com. Learn from history before it repeats. We are back with the Victor Davis Hanson Show, recording on Tuesday, the 15th of July, and this episode is up on Thursday, the 17th. Victor's website, The Blade of Perseus, is the address is victorhanson.com. Please go if you're a fan of Victor and you're new to this podcast, which video or audio. Do check it out, and you're going to find a treasure trove of stuff, links, everything Victor writes, his American Greatness essays, his weekly syndicated columns. There are the links to them. His books, links, other appearances, archives of these podcasts. But then Victor also writes twice a week, special articles, ultra articles, exclusive for The Blade of Perseus, and one exclusive video. You can subscribe at $65 for the year. That's discounted from $650 a month. And you're going to enjoy it. So trust me, please check it out. You can sign up for the email also. So lots of free stuff and worthwhile stuff for the price of a cup of coffee or something like that. So Victor, bye-bye catch and release. Headline, this is from Hot Air. Trump ends catch and release bonds for illegal immigrants. The Trump administration is attempting to make millions of immigrants living in the country illegally ineligible to be released from detention on bond as they fight their deportation cases, according to an administration official familiar with the matter. The policy shift, issued under what is known as interim guidance by acting U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Todd Lyons, will apply to all immigrants who cross the U.S.-Mexico border illegally, no matter when. Lyons told officers in a memo that such immigrants should remain in detention throughout their deportation proceedings, which can stretch for months or even years, according to the official who has been briefed on the memo. Victor, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah,
to you.
Well, it's not a proactive, it's a reactive policy. And what is it reacting against? It's, hey, you came in illegally. Hi. here's an app, press a button, and we'll give you a deportation hearing 2 years, 3 years down the road, and see ya. Go ahead and do whatever you want. You're here illegally. We don't care. We don't care if you're illegally residing. We don't care if you're able to support yourself. Oh, wow. 80% of them didn't show up for the deportation or their hearings. Why would that be? So Trump comes along and his people said, well, what would be a very conservative policy? Why don't we just say that since they don't show up in vast numbers, that we won't release them until they have their hearings? And maybe that would be a pretty conservative, fair policy. I will say one thing, though, Jack. We have the left is thinking they're going to ride this attack ICE. All that. If Donald Trump really wanted to, and this is very controversial, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from MAGA people. But I wrote about it in Mexifornia over 20 years ago. If he would do this, all the 10 to 12 million people that we saw crowding the border, if he gave a speech and said, every one of those people, maybe knowingly or not knowing, who broke through that border on a Biden took away a slot for somebody who was waiting in line legally from Mexico, from Korea, from India, from Uganda, and they just didn't care. All they wanted to do was think of themselves. So they're not going to get any consideration. Now they have a choice. They can go back voluntarily, but if we have to deport them, they'll never come back in the United States again. That's kind of what he's doing. But then if he said, that's 12 million. We had, according to Yale University and other estimates by FAIR and Mark Kerkorian's group, somewhere around 20 million illegal aliens. But here's what we're going to do. Of that 20 million, if you came in the United States and you are here illegally for 5 years, and you have done if you are able-bodied and you are working, if you're able-bodied and you're not on, I mean, if you got hit and somebody ran over you and you're on, Medi-Cal or something. But if you're able-bodied and you're not on social services, you're able-bodied and you have if you're able-bodied and you have not committed a crime, including DUI, if you're able-bodied and you're willing to pay for the crime you committed as a retroactive, maybe $1,000, $1,500 for cutting in line in front of somebody else, and if you're willing to accept an avenue to a green card, not amnesty towards citizenship, you get a green card that's renewable every year, and we'll see how that works out. If he did that, you might, of that 20 million that were not deported, after we get through with this 4-year process of getting rid of 12 million who were here illegally, or 10 million, whatever. I don't mean get rid in a mean fashion, but deport, go back to zero, and then deal with the 20 million. The left would be in a very difficult position, because if they oppose that, they would say, well, we think it's fine to be an illegal alien and not working. We think it's fine to be an illegal alien that has a couple of DUIs or has a criminal record. Well, we think it's fine to be an illegal alien and taking a dialysis slot from American citizens. It would be a very good argument, and it would diffuse the left's furor why Tom Homan does what he has to do. But I would not apply that to the people the last 4 years. But I think it would be something that the American people, if you look at polls, it's about 75%. If you phrase that question that way, it would really deflate the left, because they would go crazy about that, and they would have to argue that that was unfair and that you had a legal right not only to come here illegally but to break the law or not to be working.
You mentioned Tom Homan, and I think Mrs. Fowler is in love with him. She was watching him last night. I don't know if he was at a Charlie Kirk TPUSA event or something. He got into it with some loudmouth in the audience who was hustled out. But he's so good. He is like the perfect yin to Trump's yang.
He's a rock of Gibraltar. They say they dox him, they threaten him, they make fun of his looks, they make fun of his attitude. And he's unwavering. He's just the same. He's like a rock. Every tidal wave that comes up just can't overwhelm him. And he just says, this is the law. I am a servant of the public. I'm supposed to support enforcement of the law. This person has broken the law. I'm not vindictive. I'm going to try to get him back out where he came from as quickly and humanely as possible. And I'm going to have iterations. I'm going to start with criminals. However, if I have a warrant to get a rapist that's sitting out of Home Depot and there's somebody there illegally, I'm not going to break the law by not enforcing it. If I see somebody next to him, I'm going to ask him his immigration status. So he's doing a wonderful job, and he's what the left can't stand. Person
Yeah.
that doesn't cater to them, to equivocate, just simply
Right.
straight up, take
This,
it or leave it.
yeah, if Mitt Romney had been president, not to knock Mitt Romney, but the kind of person he might have had overseeing this department, their obsession would be, what would the New York Times say, right?
Oh, I know what they would be doing. They'd call him up and say, "This pot farm ace, this raid. There's a CSU professor that's arrested. The CSU faculty, California State University faculty, is censored. What are you doing, Tom? Why did you go into the largest pot farm and arrest 360 illegal aliens and 10 or 12 minors that were in violation of? Why did you do that? This is just, that's what they would be
Yeah.
calling him about."
So, Victor, the roots of leftist rage is a quick line here, but say whatever you want about this piece. This time around, there are no John Boltons, no Rex Tillersons, no Alexander Vindemans, and no anonymouses from the inside to thwart the Trump agenda. What are the roots of leftist rage, Victor?
I think they're threefold. The most and most remarked upon and the most obvious is obviously the Democratic Party has no political power in conventional terms. They do not have the House. They do not have the Senate. They do not have the White House. They do not have the Supreme Court. They do not have the control of the bureaucratic, the heads of the cabinetcies. They do not have an edge in the issues. In other words, they don't have a 55 margin on the border or on crime or defund the police or Green New Deal. They don't. They're angry. They scream. That's why they have to take videos of Hikem with a bat, or Cory Booker is not even filibustering. He's just out there screaming and yelling to prove that he didn't have to go to the bathroom for 25 hours. It's just insane. So that's one thing. The second thing is this time around, the Trump people said to themselves, why did we have an open border? Why did we have BLM and Antifa? Where did they come from? Why do why did they just skedaddle from Afghanistan, the greatest humiliation in probably military history of the United States? What was this transgendered third sex? Where did it come from? Why did a very small percentage of the population that suffered from gender dysphoria, when did it become 20% or something? When did biological males get the right to spike a volleyball down a girl's throat? Where does this come from? These were the wilderness years when Trump was in the wilderness. And these were Stephen Miller, Jason Miller, Susan Wiles, all of their advisors. And they came up with a second agenda, not just what I mentioned about get political power, exercise change through the institutions, but what were the sources of all those things? I know what it was. These universities are anti Semitic. They violated the Supreme Court laws. They're racist. They have and they're 95% left wing. They're flush with cash. They spiked their tuition higher than the rate of inflation. They spike us and they cheat the federal government with these exorbitant surcharges. And they don't allow Fourth, Fifth, or Sixth Amendment rights for the accused. They do not allow conservative people to speak unless they're going to be chased out, like we saw at Wellesley or uh, especially Columbia, or we saw at Stanford Law School. And they said, we're going to address that. We're going to go up, we're going to tax their endowments. We're going to insist on 15%. We're going to stop the segregation. And that will stop a lot of this. And then they said, look at USAID. That's either a safe haven for mediocre leftists to retire to, or it's a shakedown with NGOs and Stacey Abrams type stuff, and we're going to go after that. And then they said to themselves, well, you know what? NPR and PBS, this is not 1970. There's 500 channels on DirecTV or Sling or Hulu, all these different, there's access to non-commercial TV, and it's pretty inexpensive. And these people are propagandists. Most people find out when they survey the content, the news content, it's 95% left. We're just not going to fund it anymore. So they look, and I could go on, but they went to the sources, and the left says, oh my God, we don't have political power, but you can't tell us that we can't have federal money for our left-wing colleges, or our left-wing USAID, or our left-wing blue chip law firms. You can't take security clearances away from our left-wing retired intelligence officers so they can lie on the eve of an election. How dare you do that? 50. So they address the sources. And the third element of rage, we wouldn't even be talking today, Jack, if Donald Trump was failing. They would be so happy they would not be protesting. Ah, ha, ha, ha. But when you look at job growth up, inflation steady, down, personal income up, no big collapse, record high in the stock market, counter revolution, everything. And they've thrown everything at him. They've called him Hitler. They've called him fascist. They've tried to stop ICE. And he's still about 47, right about where Obama or most presidents are in their first term. So he's succeeding. And they say, man, he's got the political power. Man, he's going after the sources or fundamental capture of the institutions. He's going after that. And it's working for him. And that's the frustration. And now, everything is on, it's like the whole world has been turned upside down. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's like they're playing the world upside down after the Battle of Yorktown and you're a Brit that's been defeated. It's, it's, it's everything. There's suddenly, wow, men can't play in women's sports? Wow, there's not one person who came across the border? Wow, there's no longer 45,000 short recruits for the Army. Wow, all of a sudden you can drill oil and we're going to have coal and we're going to do all, wow. And it's like, wow, China's cheating and we're going to come to terms with them. How can this be? We didn't have comprehensive immigration reform. Wow, we didn't get the Sierra Club in on whether we could have a rare earth mineral mine or not. It's like, it was all like I guess it's like the emperor, the emperor has no
Yep.
clothes. We were supposed to believe that this buck naked progressive project, Biden Obama, was fully clothed and sophisticated and successful. And then somebody said, this is ridiculous. Biden is senile, everybody. Don't you understand that? Obama's a big faker. Don't you understand that? And then they said, wow, he's right. They're buck naked. It's over. And that's what's happened.
It's
It's really
broken.
amazing.
If the fever of race fear has broken, I don't know if it has totally, but to me, that is the
No, I think it has. I think, especially on race, I think a lot of people are saying, if the MAGA and these people are such racists, why did they get a record number of minorities, more than supposedly John McCain, the great man, and Romney, the great man, and the Bushes, the great. Why? How did that happen? And why are you losing blacks and Latinos and even the Asians? Why are you doing that if you're so left wing? And yeah, and then I think it was also a defiance. It was like, you can call me a racist.
exactly. I don't
From
right.
8 o'clock in the morning to 8 at night, I
Right.
don't care. I know I am not.
Right.
And all you're doing is indicting yourself as a race baiter.
That
Where's Professor Kendi and his
right.
$30,000 Zooms and his 50 million Boston University? And where are the architects of BLM? I can tell you where they are. They're all in their mansions after grifting, cashing in. And where's Mark Milley giving us lectures, or Lloyd Austin? Where's Lloyd Austin saying, well, we've got to find out where the sources of white rage and white supremacy and white privilege, so we in the Pentagon are going to have an exhaustive study to find these cabal. Yeah, they didn't find anything. And now what you are. You're just like every one of these other guys. You're a lobbyist now, trying to cash in on your office. And where are you, Mark Milley? Same thing. You're barking at the moon, calling Donald Trump a fascist.
I
Just what
wonder if
you
they're still
always
having
were.
those dinners where the white women go to get berated.
I don't think so. I don't think
I wonder if that.
Miss Miss Karen is saying, "I will pay. I'll have a big dinner at my Hillsborough estate, and would
Yeah.
you please come here and call me a racist while I feed you like a queen and king?" I don't think
well,
so.
well, that will lead to the next topic, which will be about the 1619 project. And then, Victor, if we have time, I want to get your take on the new issue of Strategica, which you edit and oversee for Hoover. And we'll do all that when we come back from these final important messages. If you want to drop extra pounds, boost energy levels, or reduce swelling in your legs and feet, then this message is for you. Pure Health Research is on a mission to make America healthy again, and two of their best-selling health supplements are leading the way. First is Liver Health Formula. Over 100 million Americans have a sluggish liver riddled with fatty deposits. This can kill your metabolism, pile on the pounds, and make you feel tired. Liver Health Formula takes care of all that. It supports thriving liver health with special nutrients like artichoke extract and milk thistle. This is one of the easiest ways to slim down and revitalize your energy levels. Next is lymph system support. If you struggle with fluid buildup or swelling in your legs, ankles, or feet, this is for you. This natural ingredient in lymph system support helps gently flush extra fluid and toxins out of your body. And right now, for a limited time, you can get 35% off Liver Health Formula and Lymph System Support, along with all 50-plus health supplements Pure Health Research has to offer. Head over to purehealthresearch.com and use the coupon code VICTOR at checkout. That's purehealthresearch.com with the coupon code VICTOR to save 35% on your order today. We're back with the Victor Davis Hanson show. So, Victor, there's a really good article at National Review, 1619 Project. Scholars found serious errors, but academic elites promote its political narrative. That's the headline. It's by Philip Magnus. But it ends with this. In the end, the 1619 Project faltered owing to its lack of rigor. And this is looking at it as some scholarly, thing that whatever that, I forget her name. My gosh, the New York Times lady who put together this thing. Its own lack of rigor and its willful shirking of basic scholarly expertise, and yet its reputation thrived in the university system precisely because academic elites set aside their own expertise to promote the 1619 Project's political narrative. The answer to both is a recommitment to higher standards of scholarly rigor. Now, I have a question to ask you, Victor. Do the non-Hillsdale, non-Grove City, non-Thomas Aquinas at other colleges, do they have the stomach to once again engage in what Philip Magnus calls scholarly rigor?
They don't have the stomach for it, but everybody has to remember the academic mind. There is something peculiar about getting a PhD, going right from graduate school into PhD. I did it, and I would have been a lost soul if I hadn't a farm for 5 years full time and then another 15 part time. But if you go right into that rarefied atmosphere and you're with all these people who are not connected to plumbers or electricians, or they have no skills other than academia. I'm not making fun of academia. It has a lot of valuable things, teaching and research, etc. But you're in that rarefied. It does not promote courage. Tenure does not promote courage. It promotes obsequiousness. It's kind of counterfactual. So no, they're not going to have the stomach, but this is the point. The academic does like this. DEI, I'm all for it. Everybody, I'm all for loyalty oaths. I'm all for accuse him of sexual harassment or being insensitive. I'm all for kicking him off campus without a hearing. Oh, Judge Duncan's speaking at Stanford. Great, they disrupted his lecture. Now under Trump. Oh, wow, the public, everybody's cutting down, criticizing us. I'm all for free speech. I'm all for constitution. That's how they think. And so they feel right now at this momentum increases in the university, and they're also going to think, wow, this guy didn't back down. He's going to really limit. I gave a talk not long ago. I won't get into the details where I said this thing about 15% uh, on surcharges, and one person got up and started screaming at me and said, "You're going to destroy America. You know, if you can't charge 55%." And then, there was a bunch of professors there and other people said, "This guy's insane." In other words, everybody knows it's insane now to charge 55%. And so the momentum is against these people. So 1619, Gordon Wood, I mean, all the research has been done. Gordon Wood did it. Mary Grabar, that wonderful book, Exposing 1619. Essentially, it was this: racist societies that want to institutionalize slavery are not the first societies, the American Anglo societies, to outlaw slavery, which exists in parts of the world, especially in the Middle East today. And when you have a country, it was 95% European that came here, and they have something called the Declaration of Independence. It says all men are created equal, and you have people committed to fulfilling that ideal, and are willing, in less than 80 years later, to have 700,000 people die for that principle. There's nowhere like it in the world. I don't see the Chinese saying, let's have a declaration. We're going to say all men are equal and we're going to have open borders and have a diverse. They don't do that. I think Japan does that. Japanese said, I have a declaration. All men are created equal, no matter if you're Japanese or not Japanese. Come on in. Or I don't think Uganda or Chad or I don't know, Zimbabwe believe that. Oh, all men are equal. Everybody come in, whether you're black or white, and we'll treat you all exactly. Is that what South Africa is doing right now? We're going to treat everybody the same? Or is it birds of a feather flock together? So the United States Constitution and the Declaration were an aberration. They were contrary to human nature. And that's what 1619 didn't understand. And the people who wrote that document were the beneficiaries of the most tolerant, enlightened, and self-correcting and self-critical society in the world, in history. And you can't lie for a supposed good end. That's what they thought they were doing. We're going to lie, and we're not going to have footnotes. We'll go back later. We're going to twist the evidence because it's for good reasons. No. But the thing about it was the historical society, the head of the American Historical, they were timid. They didn't want to confront that because cancel culture went after and tried to destroy them.
Yeah.
And so it was only a few brave people like Gordon Wood or Mary Grabar or Hillsdale,
right,
people like
they were
that.
they
I
were
was on the 1776 commission
right.
that addressed that. We were meeting right after the election, and man, I got
You
so
published
many
a
people.
report and counter
Yes, we
published it.
did.
Yeah.
We did, and I don't know how many times somebody would send a note to me, and it said Victor Hanson, racist, 1770 commission, 76
Gosh.
commission. Doesn't
But
mean anything anymore what
yeah,
they did.
the timidity of the professional association
Never
in
underestimate
history.
it.
I mean, it tracks all these in medicine. They all during COVID, and they all
I can tell you that I wrote a couple of op-eds, I think 3 on behalf of my friend, but it wasn't because he was my friend, Scott Atlas, because I really did believe that the lockdown and quarantine of school-age children it would do damage for generations. And putting people locked up in their homes would do something like we saw after George Floyd with all those rioting and all that acrimony. It was partly because, and I really believe that we had to take all of our resources and focus on the elderly that were vulnerable. And who was the one that was saying that? It was Scott Atlas, Jay Bhattacharya, John Ioannidis, Paul Levette, and they got nothing but calumny and anger. If you walked with Scott Atlas in 2021 across the Stanford campus, and I did do that, people would turn the other way and not get near him. What they did to him was a crime. and they tried to destroy him. They tried to destroy Jay Bhattacharya. They tried to destroy John Ioannidis. And now, pretty much the evidence from Europe, Sweden shows they were right all along. It's gonna take years to rectify the education damage, the Zoom class, all of that. And yet, all the heroes that they quoted against them, Fauci says this. Peter Daszak and Echo Health, they said it was a pangolin. Oh, Francis Collins says this. No, now they're all discredited. Fauci's a joke. And but they don't apologize. But it takes people like that. But academics, my point is, academics, one day they say Scott Atlas is an enemy of the people. The next day they think, uh-oh, I bet on the wrong horse. Public opinion now thinks he was right. Jay is running NIH. John Ioannidis has always been right on everything he said. So I'm too small-minded, and I have no character, so I'm not going to, apologize or write him a note, but I'm not going to demonize him anymore because it's not 51%. And I always
Right.
go with 51% mob.
I I asked Jay once about his friends. I mean, true friends. What's the price of what you went through? And he said, "Oh, absolutely, friends, real friends, just overnight." So I wonder how much.
Martin Kulldorff, the Harvard person, they fired him from Harvard. Now he's on the NIH Advisory Vaccination Board, I think. Now they tried to destroy people, and you know what's so weird about it is right after that we found that right after the COVID virus, there were those frantic emails from Francis Collins and Fauci about, we got a gain of function. We've got to come up with a narrative. Pangolin bat. And then there was Peter Daszak, who was funneling Fauci money to this unsecured lab. And then, let's have a Lancet, the most prestigious medical journal in the world. We'll go over there and investigate. And let me stock it with all my obsequious toadish friends. And they said that I was right, that it was a pangolin or a bat. And then that's now completely discredited.
I think Fauci may be the last person in the world that still won't admit
Yeah.
it
It's
wasn't
like the
some varmint.
51 intelligence authority. This has all the earmarks of a Russian information campaign. It didn't, but we said information. We didn't say disinformation. Therefore, we're not culpable. But we did give Joe Biden the ammunition to call Donald Trump a liar in the last national debate and affect a national election. But we're not going to apologize because we're Mike Morrell, we're John Brennan, James Clapper, we're Leon Panetta, we're somebody. We don't have to apologize for lying to the American people and warping in the whole debate and probably affecting an election. We wouldn't do that.
To quote Harry
I
Bird,
have
right?
contempt for all those people.
Yeah.
Utter
Not Harry
contempt.
Bird. Who's Harry? Harry from Nevada, who's dead now.
Harry Reid.
Harry Reid, yeah. We won,
Don't.
right? That
Yeah, they
was,
said, Senator Reid, you said that Mitt Romney never paid his income tax. That was incorrect. We won, didn't we?
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's the. Hey, Victor, let's close out by getting your take on the new issue of Strategica. And since we have so many new viewers and listeners, Strategica is a online journal of Hoover, and I think it's fair to say Victor's day job is the Martin and Ely Anderson Senior Fellow at Hoover, and one of his major tasks there is to produce and oversee Strategica, which comes out, I don't know, every 6 weeks, every 2 months, a new issue. And there is a new issue, and it's on the impact of the latest military technologies on soldiers in a potential U.S.-China confrontation. You have several pieces here, but Miles, you wrote the lead piece. So do you just want to tell us about this new issue, Victor? And I encourage our listeners to check it out on the Hoover website.
Well, we were looking at kind of like our version of the Spanish Civil War. So in 1936 to 39, Italy, actually more Italy than Germany, fed arms and tactics and new ideas about dive bombing and armor, panzers to the Spanish nationalists. And the Republicans then were supplied by the Soviet Union and international brigades. But the point was it was a laboratory for World War II. And out of that came the idea of blitzkrieg and close air support and everything. Okay, monoplanes, everything. Bombers, strategic bombers, high altitude bombing. The same thing is true of Ukraine and the Middle East. I think nobody in their right mind ever thought that 5 years ago a person in a console would be targeting a drone and it would be chasing a soldier through a trench, a drone would, and then life or death would be, or that nobody thought that AI would be calibrating, missile defense, or you could program AI into a ballistic missile and it would change course. And you would have not only drones in the air, but you could sink capital ships in the Black Sea with a drone. And so everybody was curious about how these lessons from these two ongoing wars would apply to places in the contemporary world, such as Taiwan, China. And do we have enough inexpensive drones to so-called flood the zone? Or are you just going to take a $14 billion Gerald Ford carrier and park it off the coast of Taiwan and think it's going to survive because it's not going to happen. So Miles and others were trying to incorporate things like drones, AI, lasers. We see the Iron Dome. The Israelis, I think, are about 2 years away from having an electric pulse, I should say laser, being able to shoot down incoming missiles, at least up to 3 or 4 kilometers, or maybe a mile and a half. So all of these things are happening in real life in these terrible wars. And will the United States learn quick enough to meet these challenges? And they're very bright people, but the whole purpose of the strategic and the military, it's the largest group at Hoover of all the task forces, and it's the oldest. And I can't take credit for, I get the theme of the issue, as I said before, and I pose the question. I have the study questions. I pose the poll. But it was the person who carries out is an assistant who's a research fellow, David Berkey, and he actually calls the people up and says, this is what we want. And that's a hard task because you have to make sure there's a deadline. You have to go after them and pay. We pay very well. And so it's a very laborious process. We have illustrations. So David goes into the Hoover archives and wades through all of those, gets those weird posters. It's amazing what we can come up with. And then I have to thank the people. When you have people of the caliber of Barry Strauss, the historian, Andrew Roberts, the historian, Neil Ferguson, the historian, Frank DeCoder, the historian. And you have military, H.R. McMaster, General Mattis,
Bing
Chief of
West. Yeah.
Chief of Naval Operations,
Yeah.
former Chief Gary Roughead. And then you have the most brilliant people in the world as military analysts. We have the late Angela Codevilla. We have Edward Lutwak. We have, gosh, one of the brightest people I've ever met is Michael Duran. He's really great. You have all those people, and to get them in one room and to get them out to California, it's very hard to do. It takes a lot of time, but they publish so much. Almost every week I get a book from one of the 30 or 40 members or the auxiliary observers that they have written.
This is issue 90 something. I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm working on the 100th issue. That was 99.
Was okay.
And the 100th will be an anniversary, well, kind of an anniversary, but it will be celebrating 100. And we're going to do the following. We're going to assess. I think I'll ask Peter Mansour. He just wrote a great book on MacArthur in the Philippines. He's the head at Ohio State, has a military history program. Mark Moyer has a military history program at Hillsdale College. So we're going to get some people to contribute. What is the status academically of military history, and why is it important that we have it at a graduate level and undergraduate? And more important, then I'm going to also examine the status of military history in general in the popular culture. Why is it that people don't go and want to read about settler colonialism when they go to a bookstore or on Amazon? They want to buy books about war and military history. Why is the academic profession let down in general military history? So that if you look at the people who are writing great military history, the, the vast majority are not actively an academic, just the way it is.
Well, it reminds me, and it was an academic late, William Manchester, who wrote the biography of, oh my gosh, I can't think.
MacArthur.
MacArthur, yeah. I
Yeah,
read it
yeah.
on my honeymoon. It was 800 page. Well, I got sick, Victor. I was ill. I got food.
He
So I
he
read an
wrote a
800 page book on
yeah, he was
my
a
honeymoon.
he was a brilliant prose stylist, but when
Yeah.
you go back and look at his I'm just doing this off the cuff.
Yeah. Was he
And
accurate?
no,
No.
nihil
Okay.
dicere malum nisi bonum. Don't ever, de mortuis. Don't ever speak of the dead unless it's something good to say. But I got a one off topic, but one of the most moving memoirs that was ever written about combat was With the Old Breed by E.B. Sledge, about it was one of the most horrific accounts of Okinawa, and I was very interested in it because my namesake Victor Hanson was killed there. But there was also another book written by William Manchester, Goodbye Darkness, and right before he died, E.B. Sledge wrote me a note and said, someone had said that you had praised the style, but you must know Professor Hanson, and he had all the mistakes and the things that could not be as accurate. And I went back and checked, and he was right about that. It was a
That's
very moving memoir, but it was not as everything in E.B. Sledge's With the Old Breed was absolutely accurate, and people that were involved there confirmed everything he said. It was one of the most nightmarish memoirs I've ever read. I've read a lot of memoirs on World War I and World War II, and that was something else.
yeah. Well, Victor, before we close, and as we typically do, read a comment. I want to thank folks who've written me about Civil Thoughts, which is the free weekly email newsletter that I write for the Center for Civil Society. And you can go to civilthoughts.com, sign up. And every Friday, you will get an email with 14 recommended readings. I know you're going to like it. Again, it's free, and we do not sell your name. Civilthoughts.com. Totally this non sequitur to anything. I just want to say the other night, Sharon and I watched, for whatever reason, my son Andy put on September 5th, the movie about ABC's coverage of the 1972 Olympics. And Victor, it was a really good movie. I recommend it. But man, oh man, these terrorists have been scumbags for so long.
Yeah, that
And
I remember that so well. I felt
yeah,
really remember how incompetent the German security forces
yeah,
were. They
yes,
couldn't shoot straight. I thought, wow, and it was horrible,
yeah, no,
and
so,
it's a sign of the moral depravity of this postmodern Western society that here's this little tiny Israel, and these people are trying to extinguish them, and they have 2 million Arab citizens that have more civil rights than anywhere else in the Arab world, and they know it, and they're treated with dignity, and yet they want to kill all these people, and then this day and age, just 75, 80 years after the Holocaust, they're still doing it. They're still trying. I mean, at Harvard, think of this. If I had said, say, in 1945, as the U.S. and British armies and Russian armies liberated Bergenthal, Auschwitz, or Belsen, or Treblinka, if you said, you know what, I hate to say this, you guys, but in 80 years at Harvard University, you're going to have two students that rough up Jews, and one of them is going to be given a $63,000 honorarium, I guess from the journalism people, and the other one is going to be kind of a grand marshal at the graduation ceremony. And then
Yeah.
you're going to have the brightest supposed
Tough,
minds of the Ivy League, and they're
tough
going to ask
country.
them,
Hey,
is it anti-Semitic? And depends on the context. That's what, so there we are. And it's disgusting. And everybody has to speak out against it. And it's really disgusting. It drives me nuts. Every time I'll give you one last example. I was with my wife in Menlo Park. Okay. And I was getting, actually, I had something to do. I was getting a product for a nasal, problem. And I'm sitting, and then we walked down the street. We went to a Starbucks. We're sitting in a Starbucks in front of everybody. And this elderly gentleman comes up and he says the following: I love your podcast. I agree with almost everything you say. I like what you say on Fox. I said, thank you. And then he looks at me again and he says, except one thing. Those Jews, I don't understand. I hate those people. I don't know why you're doing this. They're murders or genocide. And then he gets worked up and he gets right in my face, and he starts to, and I thought, should I knock him out? Because he was elderly. I mean, I'm 71, but he must have been 80 or maybe 75, but he was obnoxious. He got right in my face. And I said, I don't appreciate that. And he just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And then he finally got, and everybody was looking at it. And I thought, wow, this is so-called enlightened Menlo Park, 1 mile from the Stanford campus. And I thought, wait a minute, Victor, 1 mile from the Stanford campus, which an internal committee of professors who were left wing just did a 900-page report on anti-Semitism and found it epidemic on the Stanford campus, and the administration culpable for doing nothing.
right.
So there you go.
Where's the
Enough
surprise?
said. Enough said.
Well, speaking of old men, and we'll close out with this. Mark HG5FN on YouTube, commenting on one of the recent episodes, writes, my wife and I are your age, Victor, and we look forward to every video. Your calm insight, without any appearance of personal bias, is very refreshing. We wish our grandchildren had an educator of your caliber and honesty. Thanks, and we wish you a swift and total recovery from your surgery. There are many, many, many more comments just like that. So thanks to all who
Yeah.
do
Thank you.
such.
I was at a group and all of a sudden an ENT came up to me from New York, a stranger, and he said, I listened to your podcast. It was very refreshing. And he said, you mentioned Brown, and he had done that. And he said, why did you ever think you were going to feel great at 3 weeks? He goes, and he went on, and he was really good. And he said, how many rounds of antibiotics? I said, 3 different kinds. He said, I think it has something to do with using every type of antibiotic to destroy your intestinal flora. So he was really good. He was really nice. He just said, don't worry about it. In 3 months, you'll feel well, but you're not going to feel well after 4 weeks. Not without a month of antibiotics, 3 different types of antibiotics and all. So I hadn't thought of that, and it was nice of him. People are very nice. I shouldn't even say that these Karen types come up and confront me. It's 1 out of 15 people at
Well,
most.
yeah, but I don't think conservatives would go up and confront if they saw
No.
some lefty from MSNBC see him in the street. We just have a different approach to life, and
Well, I know it. Everybody knows, and if I say the following, everybody knows it's true. You have people in your family that are angry at you because you support
yeah,
Trump, whether you voted for him or not.
right,
And these people have said to you, let's not talk about politics. Let's just get along. And you say yes.
amen.
And then all of a sudden they said, but why would you vote for that? And they start it.
Yeah,
When I hear people say the country's divided, it's polarized, we all have to come along, I agree 100%. But I do believe the culpability, there's something about the heaven on earth, utopian left wing, I'm more moral, give me the power and I will create heaven on earth, that they live and breathe politics and they won't let it alone.
yeah.
The
Well,
idea that there's somebody somewhere that voted for Donald Trump that they haven't yelled at bothers them. So they will say, can't we all get along? And then they will start
on
it
my
up again.
terms, right?
On my terms.
Yeah. Well, you've been terrific, Victor, and you're coming out of the tunnel, and I'm very happy for that.
I
And you
hope so.
will. I guess the next time we record, we'll be back with the usual
I hope
background.
so.
So,
We'll be back on the South 40,
okay,
or the,
very
the
good.
only 40.
Okay. Vic, you've been terrific. Thanks for everything. Thanks, folks, for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of the Victor Davis Hanson Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching.